I think the biggest thing is in the world of social media, we're in a world of comparison. And so you can see what everybody else is doing 24/7. And I think I also did that when I was in company. I was looking around at everyone and thought that they knew more than I did and did things better than I did, all of those stories. And I think if you just try to pull yourself away from that and realize how much you have accomplished yourself, that you're only in competition with yourself and being better than maybe you were yesterday. And I think the more that you can do that, it allows you to just let go of all the pressure and the stress and what is everybody else doing? I have to do it that way too. And what if I don't? They won't see me. You're actually seeing more for being unique, for having your own style, your
Yes.
own thoughts, your own way of doing things. And I didn't appreciate that back then. And I certainly do now because that's what I'm trying to help people create when I coach them is what is something that you could be known for that is different than what everybody else is known for. You don't have to be like them. If anybody can take away that message alone, I hope that you can start to look at yourself and the great things that you've already done and how can you use those and show those off a bit more so that people can see you.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. It actually gave me the goosebumps because I think one of the things that we just do as humans is we minimize our greatness. We minimize our accomplishments and we're kind of blind to them. I noticed when I was leading, I was able to see the strengths of my team and all that pretty easily. But when it came to myself, like you were saying, I would be like, oh, am I really good at that? Some of my strengths are strategy and visionary and things like that. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't know if I'm really good at that. I know I liked it, but it wasn't until kind of like what you're saying, until I claimed those parts of me as like, hey, these are my gifts, talents, and this is what I need to lean into. Until I did that, I really didn't become visible in a way that,
Mhm.
like you said, that was authentic to me. So it's like when I claimed those, a lot of magic happened. So I love that you
Yeah.
said that. It
Gives
was
you
really great.
power, right?
It
It starts to
does.
give you your power back. Speaking of the empowered
Yeah,
show here.
exactly. Take your power back on the Empowered Half Hour. So good. That's so good. So I want to move into why are you passionate about this topic? It's kind of oozing through you, but why is this topic important?
I did not realize the importance of visibility growing up as I went into the workforce. I grew up at a time where work ethic was really important. You work really hard, you get noticed, you get promoted. That's how it worked. And I think that's true when you are starting out in a company. And I think that's true up until a certain point. But you have to start to stand out earlier than I think I realized, obviously. And I wasn't doing enough of it. And so if I could just help people understand the message about you can do great things, you can work really hard, but you have to talk about it. You have to tell people. Otherwise, they don't know because managers are super busy right now. They barely have time for themselves, let alone to focus on each and everything that their team is doing. And so the more that you can help them with that by either sending a status report to them and letting them know something that happened. If you're in the office, dropping by their office and saying hello and giving them a quick update, or even just on a Teams or however you communicate on Slack,
Sure.
just send a quick message because you're keeping you in front of them and reminding them about what you're doing and how it's going.
That's awesome. And it makes such a difference too. I get really passionate about that topic as well. I like Adam Grant's work a lot, but he says
Hmm.
sometimes like the quietest person doesn't get the attention because
Correct.
they're not being visible, but we need positive change. It's up to us as individuals to change the work culture. It's changing. I look back at 10 years ago. My kids are in college now, but what working moms experience now, I don't think is nearly as brutal as it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. What we do matters at work. And I just really like this message of bring it forward because especially if you're more introverted, you may not be getting the spotlight that not only you need for your own progression, but what impact could your awesomeness have if people knew about it? What are your
Hmm.
thoughts on that?
Wow, I love that you brought all that up. But if I talk about it just from the visibility angle for just a second, in introverts, I think it's very common, and I just wrote a blog about this yesterday. Introverts have this story that they can't speak up, that they can't do this because I'm too quiet. I don't want the spotlight on me. For those people, I want to help them understand, and I'm an introvert at heart. I can be an extroverted person when I need to, but I think inside, I've always been this introvert that would much rather stay home and read a book than necessarily go to a huge networking event. But over time, I've learned that that's important to do too. And I don't have to talk to every person. I could talk to 3 or 4 people, really impactfully and have a great experience out of that. But what I realized is that I wasn't only hurting myself by not being visible, I was hurting my team. And that's not fair
Yes.
to them. That's
It's
not fair.
not.
They're not in these meetings. So once I realized that I'm somebody, at that point, and I'm still working on it, of putting others first. And I was putting them last too. And that's not fair. So that helped me shift a lot to start to say, what can I do to help them get the spotlight? And they were scared and they were not excited about it at the beginning. And I started to just help them understand you have an important message to send. They need to hear it. And if you're not doing it, no one else is going to hear it. So over time, I had to work with them, and really, I think me helping them gave me confidence, and it helped me do more of it, like sit at the table with the executives before they got there. I would get there early and be at the table. And I think
Love
everybody
it.
assumed you had to be at a certain level to be there. I'm like, screw that. I'm just going to be there, and we're going to make sure that my whole team is there too. So it's little things like that that are very visible that people can see and start to see you differently.
That's awesome. So we have time. Can you go into the mom thing a
Oh,
little
sure.
bit?
When I was coming up in the world, it was very much like you have to accept whatever promotion might be offered to you. You can't say no. You can't really talk about that you have these children who are sick at home and you've had to scramble all morning to get someone to watch them for you. I used to have my daycare director, love her to pieces. She would come to my house at 5 a.m. so that she could get my kids ready, take them to school so I could be at a steering committee meeting by 7. I was the only woman in the room. All of these men who probably had support at home and didn't have to worry about that stuff. But I had to go in there and show up like none of that happened. And I love the way the world has changed now. I think post pandemic for sure. People are starting to look at families as important. People are
Thank
showing their
goodness.
dogs on camera and their kids. And I love that that's been normalized because that's
Me too.
reality. Why would
Me
we
too.
hide that? So making those things visible, I think, is really important, and recognizing that everybody can be struggling and that's okay too. We need to just help them. Ask if your person is fine. Are you really fine? Not just assume because they said they're fine that they are. I think a lot of people are dealing with so much stuff right now that
I would
that might
agree.
be preventing them from being visible too.
I agree with that. And the world is changing, and some things are changing far for the better. And then some things are just feel really heavy right now.
Hmm.
And so I think
Hmm.
with visibility comes the responsibility to lead and check in on people and make sure people are okay. I
Yeah,
really
because
like that you said that.
you can't have visibility without psychological safety. You just can't. And so if you are a leader of people and you're listening to this and you have an introvert on your team or someone who's struggling, you have to help make it safe for them to speak up because otherwise they won't. And when they do, please encourage them behind the scenes and say, great job. I loved that you shared that. Share
Mhm.
some more in the next meeting because they just need to know that it's okay and that someone's hearing them.
Oh my God, that type of stuff can bring tears to my eyes. I'm very passionate when it gets down in the trenches like that because I have seen through the leadership lens, when you do get into leadership, you see so much more. It is the employees that have difficulty speaking up because they don't feel safe, that
Hmm.
go unseen, unheard, and it just impacts their personal life so much. I think sometimes in leadership roles, I know I've done it. I'm guilty of it. I've been like, oh, Bobby's fine. They're performing well enough. I'm going to go deal with something else. But I have definitely glanced over people who needed more of my presence. I think on the flip side, and we're going to go to the empowerment side of this in a second, but the flip side, like you're saying, when you can become present and give the safety to your employees to have a voice, magic happens. Some of the quietest people have the best ideas.